It's a really beautiful opportunity just to talk to these parents and go, you've done nothing wrong. They're actually, if they're doing that at this age in their development, they're doing exactly what they need to be doing. Yeah. You know, it shows that, you know, they're very healthy. Yeah. When you have really intentionally been responding to your baby and connected and taking those opportunities to get to know your baby, when real life and hard moments come, they're not babies that suddenly forget that they have a safe person. They know they have a safe person, so they're still going to communicate their needs.
Ngala acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging in the spirit of reconciliation. We acknowledge the importance of children being raised with connection to culture, community and family.
Welcome back. Parenting with Ngala Season 2. We've got Carol here. Carol's going to be talking to us about behaviour in the first year. So why don't we start by getting you to introduce yourself, your role and a little bit about your family.
So I've been at Ngala for about 11 years now as a child health nurse. I've worked across multiple areas in the service and currently working in a program that supports vulnerable families access timely supports, overcome barriers to accessing supports and also a mother of 3, so busy at work and busy back at home as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Finish one shift, back to the next shift.
Yes, never ending.
Yeah. So we've asked you in here today because we often get questions from parents about infant behaviour or behaviour that they might see in their young baby. So can you start by telling us about, you know, what does that mean? What does behaviour look like or mean in that sort of first year?
Yeah. It's always funny when we talk about behaviour in babies because I think we think of toddler behaviour and adult behaviour, but in babies it's a lot of their responses to what's happening either internally or in a response to what's happening externally. So a response to something happening in their environment or what they're feeling inside their bodies. So often that comes out in the way, you know, they are, whether it's through crying, through being happy, letting you know exactly how they feel. Sometimes we joke a lot at work that we kind of have an idea of what they're saying right now, you know.
Yeah, they don't have the words.
They don't have the words, but they can express
the body's
it.
saying something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's responding to the environment and, you know, there's no such thing as like a naughty baby.
No, absolutely not.
We've talked about the good, the bad baby.
Yeah.
It's not so much about that, is it?
No, it's not at all. It's funny because we do get calls, you know, we get referrals talking about 6-month-old behaviour and 11-month-old behaviour. They've been called by daycare because their 11-month-old is bad behaviour. And we know that's not true. Babies aren't bad or good. They just,
they're using the skills that they have and the ways of communicating they have to just respond to what's going on.
Absolutely. And, you know, we as parents, we're taking our time to learn what they're trying to communicate with us. And so it might be that, you know, when they cry or when they start to get a bit more, they're needing that closeness, we learn slowly that, that usually means that they're starting to get tired or maybe they're a bit overwhelmed by what's happening around them. So a lot of the time they're trying to communicate something to us, but it does take us time to learn what those things are.
This is so true because I think we forget that this is a baby's or an infant's first time here. So everything that they experience is going to be new for the first time at one point or another. Yeah. So they might have an itchy foot and they're letting us know by crying. And we've tried everything, but we can't fix that itchy foot because we don't know.
Absolutely.
And so like you said, it's just about getting to know them and picking up on those kind of hints.
Yeah.
And a best guess kind of, you know, we might try to rule out a few things and try to work it out, but kind of taking that perspective that my baby, however they're responding, is a communication of some sort of hidden need. Sometimes I use that iceberg analogy that what you see as the behaviour is just the tip of the iceberg. There's often something underneath that's,
and there's all this going on.
Bigger.
I think as parents or, you know, even as grown-ups, we naturally want to stop them, you know, feeling uncomfortable. And so when we think of behaviour, we usually associate it with more of those negative communications, whether it's crying or, you know, unsettled behaviour, and we think we have to stop them crying or we have to stop them feeling that. but it's a real opportunity to get curious about what is this communicating to me right now? You know, and it might be different each time.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it's a bit of a shift, taking the perspective that my goal here is to try to understand what's going on as opposed to turn off and fix the behaviour.
Yeah.
Because if we go straight into fix-it mode, we actually lose the learning opportunity ourselves.
Absolutely.
But sometimes our own behavioural motivation is to turn it off.
And that's okay. You know, sometimes you will need to just turn it off. You know, that's just as a parent, you might need to do that one day.
100%,
But if you can do that good enough parenting, you know, and just strive to sit in the uncomfortable, you know, you don't want your baby to be uncomfortable or to have these big emotions, but sometimes you just have to sit with it and let them feel it and know that the feeling's safe. And that's really important.
That's it.
And I suppose behaviour is that foundation of learning then as well.
Yeah.
You know, those responses are teaching, and how we respond to their responses are teaching them about, you know, what the world is all about.
What the world is like, who's my safe person, you know, who's going to help me when I have a need that I'm trying to communicate, but they don't even know what they need. They just know something feels something in their body.
There's no name for it.
There's no name for it.
Yeah.
And I guess just responding to their behaviour in a sensitive and responsive way it's also part of developing that relationship and attachment, you know, between baby and caregiver as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned relationship because we do know that relationships are what have the most impact on babies in that first year. Yeah. So how do they affect babies' relationships?
Yeah. So we know, you know, their behaviour, it's not just developing in isolation and all in their own little bubble. They learn how to respond to the world and you know, within the context of a relationship. And so when they know that they've got a sensitive caregiver that's going to respond to their needs, they know, okay, I'm safe and there is someone that's going to help me through this moment.
So, Carol, what do we know about the impact of relationships in that first year?
Yeah, so we know that relationships impact all areas of their development. So even their behaviour, it's not just developing in isolation. As you know, as parents and caregivers, when they respond sensitively to their baby's communication and needs, we know that that's teaching their brain that, you know, you're safe and that has a positive and healthy impact on their brain development. And then, you know, the next time maybe they feel that same way, they go, okay, I'm not alone in this. I've got someone that's going to respond to my needs. And so
co-regulation.
Yeah.
And also that overarching brain development perspective of neurons that fire together, wire together, which we often say to families. So if we're, you know, supporting our babies through things, then we're strengthening those neural pathways of responsiveness and caregiving attachment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Builds that trust.
It builds a trust. It's actually good to respond to them. You know,
you can't spoil them.
You cannot spoil them in that first year, and we hear it a lot still till this day. Is that
I built a bad habit. I've spoiled my baby.
Or we get the my baby's manipulating me. Yeah, you know, they're doing this so that I do this, and I'm like, a baby cannot do that. They don't have the capacity to do that yet.
They cannot. Yeah. They don't actually have the area in their brain to manipulate that. That's not even, you know, developed yet.
So, they don't have that cognitive capacity.
Yeah.
And also sometimes with behaviour, if we put the behaviour inside the baby, we sometimes as parents feel a bit helpless because we're like, this is my baby. I can't, you know, this is just who they are. Whereas if we take a bit of a shift in thinking to say, actually, this baby is responding to their environment, their internal, external environment, then we actually have more power within ourselves to problem solve and to look at, well, you know, what is happening for them and to try to come up with some solutions or some ideas to try out help, as opposed to kind of thinking it's just who they are necessarily. They're really just experimenting and learning.
They are.
And it's our job to kind of shape that a little bit.
Yeah. I know, you know, parents we speak to all the time, I can't even put my baby down to cook dinner or, you know, what did I do
to make this behaviour happen?
Cause them to be that way. And so and we, you know, it's a really beautiful opportunity just to talk to these parents and go, you know, you've done nothing wrong. They're actually, if they're doing that at this age in their development, they're doing exactly what they need to be doing. You know, it shows that, you know, they're very healthy, on track, meeting milestones. They know that there's someone safe that they can call out to. But you're right, it's also about learning, what is my role in this moment and what's happening for me.
And I think we, as a culture, as a world, we love independence. You know, we love independence, and we've got this little person, and who are not particularly independent.
No.
Some of them want to be. Some of them want to be way more independent than they should want to be.
But and especially as an OT, there's such a focus on functional independence, in my training background. But I, as a parent, have also had to shift to go, well, actually, independence is important. That is a goal for our children. Yeah. But there's something very special in interdependence and even dependence. A little person, little baby is very dependent on us, and that is developmentally expected. Yeah. And we actually want that, because if they're dependent on us, then we can shape.
We can shape,
Yeah. And that's what we kind of
absolutely. I've got 3, and I know they've got 3 different personalities and temperaments. So even when you're parenting the same way, their responses to you are still individual to them. And I know it's there's always this pull to feel guilt and shame about, what am I doing that's causing this behavior in my baby? And again, it's about in the context of relationships, is that if you are responding to them in a loving and sensitive way, then that is not going to cause this baby to become dependent on you for the rest of their lives. You're helping them in a moment, of their development where they do need you. It's very normal for them to need you.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it's okay, and we want to encourage it.
Them.
Helps their brain.
Yeah.
It's interesting with you mentioned temperament and different children, because you can parent the same way and then suddenly they're responding in a different way to that. So and again, that's why we think thinking about behaviour as, they're responding to something in their environment, you're responding to that, they're responding again. It's almost, there's no end point. It keeps going round and round. And sometimes the way we parent one child is, or the type of baby that we have, and we think we did this last time and it's not working this time with the second child or the third child. Again, very normal experience, and we, variation in how babies respond and how they grow up to be human beings is to be expected, but also desired.
Yes.
That makes a good world.
Absolutely.
So I think you touched on this briefly, Carol, but how do parents nurture a relationship with their baby, like that kind of really strong caregiver relationship?
Yeah. I think, I did touch on it a few times, but it is really about, getting to know your baby, getting to know their style of communication. So crying is not, always meaning something is wrong.
Yeah.
It's that's the only way they know how to communicate in those years. So, we're talking about 3 to 12 months. Sometimes it might be through their body language, sometimes it's through their crying. But, as we get to know our baby, and we respond to them, and knowing that responding to them in a loving and safe way is not going to spoil them. It's not going to, cause this baby to, it's not going to intensify that behaviour. So if you've got a baby that's really quite, needs touch, needs to be held all the time, and you can't put them down to cook, by responding to them and going, in their time of need, baby wearing, that's not going to spoil them. You don't see teenagers that are.
No, that's right.
That are still.
You haven't got teenagers in baby carriers while mums are cooking.
Absolutely,
imagine that. Because I also think, again, we talk about the good enough parenting. So if there is that opportunity for us to respond in that way that kind of meets that need, that we lean into to what that we kind of a guessing is maybe this need for closeness, for softness, for a feeling of togetherness, say, for example. There will be other times where we're sitting on the toilet and we can't do that. So, there's plenty of opportunities for the soft experience and the harder experience for our baby, where there is a separation because just we're driving and our baby's unhappy. We might use our voice to help kind of soothe them. But we can't always pull over on the freeway and give them that cuddle. So it's that balance between good enough parenting and
good enough is good enough.
Good enough is good enough. And seeing those little glimmers and those opportunities is great because we know that there are other times when it's not always possible.
I love that you touched on the good enough parenting, and because we're not, we're not ignoring the fact that life is hard. You can't always be, sitting down at their level. And when we're talking about responding to them, in a warm and nurturing way. That doesn't mean you drop everything at all times to, real life happens. But when you do get those moments of connection and the good enough parenting, I think Daria spoke about, what is it, 30%?
Yeah, 30% of the time.
30% of the time.
Yeah.
When you have really intentionally, been responding to your baby and connected and taking those opportunities to get to know your baby, when, real life and hard moments come, they're not babies that suddenly forget that they have a safe person. They know they have a safe person, so they're still going to communicate their needs. Yeah. But we've had all these beautiful moments to build up that relationship and attachment so that when hard moments come, they can get through those moments.
Or we might be able to just give them a little bit less. Like if we're driving, we might be able to use our voice to say, Mummy knows it's hard and I'm trying my best, and and they might still not like that. They're probably not going to like that. But you know that this is just in this moment and this moment will end, and then you'll have that repair or reunification, which is actually very important as well, when there has been a bit of a rupture. Yeah,
that's really true about they might not like that. So we talk about that, with parents all the time, is that, for example, if there's any change process happening, you're working on, on a few things, babies don't like change. That we know that they're going to communicate that pretty strongly,
bit
right?
Lost, bit confused, what's going on.
Things going well doesn't mean absence of them letting us know that. They're still going to let us know that they're not happy about what's happening. But we still let them know that we're here.
Yeah.
We're responding to them, and they'll still let us know how they feel about this. That doesn't mean things aren't going well. They're just letting us know how they feel about it.
Yeah.
Again, they still might not like it, but they know that there's someone that's going to be there to help them through that.
Yeah.
And that's important. You're laying the foundations there for a baby who's going to be able to express emotions and feel safe to do so.
Yes.
So, sadness and anger then become emotions that they feel, oh, yeah, I can be angry and sad and I'm actually okay. And it's not too big or scary for my parent to be with me during this emotion. Yeah. Because a lot of times I think our generation we grew up being told kind of, don't be angry, don't be sad. And so now it's really hard for parents to sit with their children through those emotions because we feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And so that's just another thing to think about, is where are you comfortable with your baby being, and then maybe not name the emotion that you think they're feeling, because it might not be that, but you might feel that.
Yeah.
And all of us feel more comfortable, less comfortable with different emotions.
Exactly.
Based on how we were brought up ourselves.
Yes.
And again, when we bring small people into the world, it brings up a lot.
It does.
Sometimes about how we parent.
Stuff that you forgot even happened.
Or repressed.
Yeah, absolutely repressed.
Are we going there?
Yeah, no, we don't have enough time for that. So yeah.
It is. We do talk about it, don't we? With families all the time. Any sort of behaviour talks, it does bring out that part of what is it doing in us.
Yeah.
And that idea of reparenting yourself in that moment to go, okay, when I hear my baby behave or see or hear my baby behaving this way, it makes
triggers
it
me.
It brings up certain things in me, and
that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think naming it and going, I actually am not okay with my baby being distressed.
Yes. Yeah.
And knowing that that's a trigger for you, being aware of it, but then also allowing your baby to feel those emotions is actually so important.
Absolutely.
So you've got to try and sit with it.
Yeah.
And that's when we talk about it's a dyadic relationship. Yeah. It's not just the baby, it's a baby and someone.
Yeah.
And so there's a little, relationship milieu between the two of you that you're also trying to work out, and how you respond and how they respond are interconnected.
It's interconnected. You're learning about your baby, but you're learning a lot about yourself in the process. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize, this emotion feels quite intense for me. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. So what kind of behaviours can we expect to see in the first year? What would we be looking for?
What would we be looking for? So
like 3 to 4 months, what's kind of typical what that babies might be doing? Or
so 3 to 4 months I think it's a really nice time in baby's development. That's when you start to see a lot more personality, even if it's just being curious about the world around them. They're much more interested in what their people are doing. So, the faces, smiling, babbling, they're starting to interact with the people around them and the world around them a lot more.
their
They're not just this
personality.
little sleepy
Yeah.
little jelly beans anymore.
No more potato.
No more potato.
Yeah.
Maybe early signs of those temperaments coming
Yes.
out as well. Yeah. And, 4 to 5 months, there's a lot more. Some people describe this age as being a little bit more fun. Like suddenly they feel like their baby can actually do things. So there's maybe some interactions with activities.
Yes. Yeah. They know 4 to 5 months is a fun age that we get to work with because they're starting to
Really cute.
really cute, really know, their
they know what they
preferences.
want.
They know what they want.
And
they're
will
gonna
tell you. Which is great.
Yeah, but their little bodies are still, the motor skills are still catching up to what they want to do. So even when we're, putting babies to sleep and we know this baby wants to roll, but
Not
they
quite
don't
there.
have the physical skills to yet, but then,
The frustration
is there and the awareness is there already. So,
Becomes really tricky.
it does. It is a tricky age.
Tricky and fun.
Tricky and fun, yeah.
Two things can be true at the same
coexist, yes.
time. Yeah.
So then sort of 6 to 12 months, what are common behaviours or presentations that we might see in babies at that age?
It's a really fun age as well, isn't it? This is where we see that those relationships they have with their caregivers are, a lot more strengthened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might have a bit more of a preference for one caregiver, and that's
Yes.
very normal.
Yep.
It's very, very, we see it a lot in, if they're spending a lot of time with either, only mum or only dad or only grandma, they start to have that strong attachment to that,
And maybe
that figure.
recognize, like they're really recognizing those familiar relationships as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So showing excitement
Yes.
maybe when they see grandma.
Yeah. And they struggle to separate more.
Yeah, that awareness.
Yeah, that awareness. So they, even around 9 months is when that object permanence, we call it, comes in, which is, they know something exists even when they can't see it. And so,
Separation anxiety.
Anxiety really starts around that.
So when you walk out the door at daycare,
yes,
they know that you are leaving.
When you put them down for a nap,
You're in the other room.
You're in the other room. Yeah, so they're like, hello.
Come back.
Come back. I know you're there. So
And it's a really great, actually, sign of brain development.
Absolutely.
It's something, but again, often when these things first emerge, we can go through a trickier patch.
Yes.
And we might have a baby that is maybe more expressive.
Yes.
And again, this comes to personalities. There are some babies that they're a bit grumpy or they might express, but then they sort of get over it. And then they've got the other ones that, because of their temperament, their mood, maybe their ability to be distracted.
That's right.
So many elements of temperament then can be like they actually hold, it takes a bit longer for them to get through those trickier periods.
yeah. I think it's also we do get calls or referrals around when you think of anxiety and separation anxiety, it sounds scary.
Yeah.
And so when they're like, I think my baby has separation anxiety, as if it's
a
that's
really
not actually
negative thing.
Yeah, it's not a negative thing. It's maybe they do because it's part of that normal
And we expect
development.
that.
We expect that. But what are some things that we can do to reassure you that's normal, but some ideas
help you manage.
Help you manage when you if you are on your own in the evenings and you've got a toddler and a baby to look after, then it's absolutely normal to struggle and think that's a bad thing. But it's also they're right on track. They're right on track.
It's also a lot for parents to feel so needed.
Yes.
And that can be really overwhelming as well, is to know that your baby does need you so much.
Yeah.
For some parents. Some parents love it.
Yeah.
But it can be a lot.
Yeah, that can make people feel a bit uncomfortable as well sometimes.
Yeah. It's that touch, and it's how we talk about a lot about being touched out, and each baby has as an OT that they all have different ways of calming and comforting. Some is through touch, some are okay through voice.
Yep.
Just visual cues, but
and those preferences can change. So sometimes, particularly as the baby starts to get older and maybe have some of their own skills come out. Before maybe they liked a nice little bum pat. Yeah. And now they're like, no.
Oh, they'll tell you.
They'll tell you.
Pushing
Push
the hand
your hand
away.
off.
They're sort of wanting to roll around, and maybe that's when you say, okay, that's clearly not working.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll use my voice, or maybe I'll if they're old enough for a comforter, like support their use with that.
That smell as well,
It's okay for preferences, like for those soothing strategies to vary and change. That happens with all of us as well.
It's with all of us.
Yeah.
It's at 6 to 12 month. We also see not only their, sensory preferences, but those little personalities and temperaments. So some babies will just be really going off and moving around and needing to explore physically to see their world and take it all in. And some babies are happy just sitting there
sit with mum and
that approachability of new people or new environments. So there'll be some babies that are quite confident to meet new people and to approach new environments, and others that want to stay close. They have a smaller circle. So we love to talk about the circle of security as well. So the big circle or the little circle. And sometimes the little circle babies, they might need a little bit of support kind of going out on that circle. And some of those babies that are more sort of able to explore with more confidence.
They need to be brought back in.
With the full sort of circle, especially when, they're starting to crawl and explore the environment. But also that links in with the separation awareness so much, because they sort of go out and then it makes sense biologically that they are aware of that separation now for safety.
That's right.
Because they want to be like, hang on, I went a little too far.
Yes.
I want to bring my caregiver back in. And so I'm now aware because I have this skill and this ability to explore further than I did when I was a little potato baby.
I think it's also a stage where, because their personalities and temperaments are becoming so, you are seeing it much more, it's so much more evident that it can be confronting for parents around, is my baby doing all the right things? Because they're so different to all the other babies in my mother's groups. I even, I think I'd been working as a child health nurse for 6 years before I had babies, and I still found that really confronting. So I remember we were out at a restaurant one day, and I had a toddler and a baby. My kids are 13 months apart, the first two. And they're just wild. They're loud. They like to climb. And then my friend, he was like, and he saw another table with kids, and he goes, "Is that what normal kids are like?" And I was like,
normal.
Normal.
I love that.
And then, it was funny. It was, I didn't.
But I bet you questioned yourself.
But I was like, am I a bit?
Am I doing something wrong? Are my
right
children
things?
doing something wrong?
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah. And Daria, who we have had on in season 1 and also on season 2 as well, she talks about the convenient child. So maybe in
the
that
convenient
moment,
child,
that child appeared more convenient.
That's right. Yeah, they're sitting quietly in a restaurant. They're convenient. They're doing all.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that if your baby's crying in a restaurant, that they're the bad baby. That's not the.
That's it.
They're just a little bit less convenient in that moment.
Yeah.
And we sometimes talk about like the goodness of fit also between yourself as a caregiver and the baby that you have. So the baby that you have versus the idea of the baby that you thought you were going to have. And sometimes there's a lovely tight fit where we have this baby that we clearly understand where they came from. And then other times we look and go, where did you come from?
Who are you?
Who are you? And that can sometimes take a little bit of adjustment as well.
Absolutely.
And can also impact how we see and frame. There's that confirmation bias sometimes. So if we're looking for a certain narrative, I suppose we're more likely to see examples of behaviour that fits into that narrative. So being aware of that as well.
That's very, very true.
Carol, we've talked about some really interesting topics today. We know that families often have questions around behaviour, and it was a really interesting conversation to try to reframe it and to think what that word actually means within the context of particularly young babies 3 to 12 months. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That was fun.
Thanks for listening to Parenting with Ngala. The topics covered in our podcast are general in nature, and the information might not suit everyone. If you're in Western Australia and would like to chat about a specific challenge, you can talk directly to the Ngala parenting line by calling 9368 9368. For all other links and resources, check out the Ngala website and the show notes below. Thank you again, and see you next time.